go to college. She stays home, takes care of the house, marries young, and has babies. Grandma did it. Mom did it. So when I got accepted to MIT, my mom didn't celebrate. She tore the letter in half right in front of my face and said, "This is not who we are." I didn't cry. I didn't scream. That night, while the house slept, I taped the pieces back together, packed a single duffel bag, and left at 5 a.m. I never looked back. For 7 years, I was dead to them. No phone calls, no holidays, nothing. But yesterday, I returned to my hometown, driving a car that costs more than my childhood home. I didn't come back for a tearful reunion. I came back because my eldest niece just turned 18 and my sister texted me in secret. Mom just burned her college application. My name is Chloe, and I am 25 years old. To understand why I am standing on the front porch of my childhood home today, you have to understand the invisible prison I grew up in. In my family, women didn't have careers. We had duties. The rule was unwritten but absolute. The eldest daughter stays home, cooks, cleans, and waits for a husband chosen by the family. My grandmother lived this way, and my mother, Eleanor, guarded this tradition like a religious text. But I was different. I spent my nights under the covers with a flashlight, solving calculus problems while my mother thought I was asleep. When the acceptance letter from MIT arrived, offering me a full ride, I thought the nightmare was finally over. I proudly handed the paper to my mother, expecting a sliver of pride. Instead, her face twisted in pure disgust. Without a word, she ripped the letter completely in half. "This is not who we are, Chloe," she whispered coldly. "You belong here." I didn't shed a single tear in front of her. That night, I waited until the house was completely silent, filled only with the sound of my father's heavy snoring. I crept to the kitchen, found a roll of clear packing tape, and painstakingly pieced my shattered future back together. At exactly 5 in the morning, while the horizon was still a dark shade of blue, I slipped through the back door with a single duffel bag. I didn't leave a note. I just left. The wilderness of independence was terrifying, but it was nothing compared to the suffocating prison I had left behind. Arriving in Boston with nothing but a taped-up letter and a single duffel bag, I quickly realized that a full-ride scholarship didn't cover the cost of staying alive. While my classmates complained about difficult exams, I spent my college years running on a dangerous mixture of raw ambition and pure exhaustion. I worked 3 separate campus jobs, frequently slept on the lumpy couches in the engineering library, and learned exactly how to stretch a single $5 bill to buy groceries for an entire week. The hardest part wasn't the grueling workload or the constant financial stress. It was the deafening silence from my family. On holidays, while my roommates packed their bags to go home to loving parents, I stayed behind in an empty, freezing dorm room. My mother had made sure I was entirely dead to them. No phone calls, no birthday texts, absolutely nothing. But that isolation became my fuel, into my code. By the time graduation arrived, I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving. I landed a high-paying role as a software engineer at a top-tier tech firm, and within 3 short years, I climbed the corporate ladder to become a lead developer. At 25, I achieved absolute financial independence, earning a salary that my parents couldn't even begin to fathom. I had completely built a brand new life from nothing. My self-made paradise came crashing down on a rainy Tuesday afternoon when my phone buzzed with an unknown number. I normally ignored unrecognized calls, but a strange instinct urged me to open the accompanying text message. It was from my younger sister, Lily, whom I hadn't spoken to since the dawn I walked out. The text read, "Chloe, please don't ignore this. I need your help. History is repeating itself, and I don't know what to do." My heart hammered against my ribs as I read her follow-up messages. Lily explained that her eldest daughter, Maya, who is now 18, had inherited my exact love for numbers. Maya was a brilliant student, top of her class, and had just received an acceptance letter with a major scholarship to a prestigious university. But history wasn't just repeating itself. It was practically a carbon copy. My mother, Eleanor, had discovered the acceptance letter that morning. Instead of celebrating, she had thrown it into the fireplace, forcing the ancient family tradition onto another innocent girl. Lily was too terrified of our mother's financial control to fight back, but she couldn't bear to see Maya's spirit broken the way mine had nearly been. Reading those words, a cold, calculated fury washed over me. For 7 years, I had kept my distance, but this was a definitive line in the sand. I wasn't that helpless 18-year-old girl anymore. I had the power, the resources, and the burning desire to strike back. I booked a flight home immediately. The drive from the airport into my hometown felt like entering a time capsule where nothing had changed, yet everything was completely different. The same faded billboard greeted me at the town limits, and the same cracked pavement lined the quiet streets. But as I pulled up to my childhood home, the contrast was impossible to ignore. I was driving a luxury sedan that literally cost more than the entire house I grew up in. I deliberately timed my arrival for 7 in the evening, knowing exactly what I would find. It was Sunday, the designated night for the mandatory weekly family dinner. I parked at the curb, took a deep, grounding breath, and walked up the front steps without an ounce of hesitation. I didn't bother knocking on the door. I simply turned the brass knob and stepped directly inside. The front door opened right into the dining room, and the moment my heels clicked against the hardwood floor, the entire room froze in absolute shock. My mother, Eleanor, stopped mid-sentence, her fork suspended in the air. My sister, Lily, gasped softly, her eyes widening in disbelief, while her husband looked completely bewildered. Sitting at the far end of the long table was my niece, Maya. Her eyes were red and heavily swollen from crying, and her posture was completely defeated. The heavy silence in the room stretched out, thick with a decade's worth of unsaid words and sudden, overwhelming panic. My mother was the first to break the paralyzing silence, her chair scraping loudly against the floor as she stood up. The synthetic warmth she usually put on for guests was completely gone, replaced by a cold, sharp hostility. "What are you doing here, Chloe?" she demanded, her voice dripping with venom. "You chose to abandon this family 7 years ago. You are an outsider in this house, and you have absolutely no right to walk back in here unannounced." I didn't flinch. I didn't raise my voice or show a single flicker of emotion. Instead, I slowly walked over to the dining table, ignoring her completely, and looked down at my niece, Maya. On the sideboard behind her sat the charred, black remnants of her college application, still sitting in the ashtray. The sheer cruelty of it made my blood boil, but it only made my resolve harden. I opened my designer handbag, pulled out a thick, official-looking manila folder, and laid it down flat on the polished mahogany table right in front of Maya. Lily's husband's brothers, who had been eating silently, stared at the document in confusion. My mother glared at it like it was a weapon. "What is that nonsense?" she snapped. "This," I said, looking my mother dead in the eye, "is a fully funded, legally binding, irrevocable educational trust fund. It completely covers Maya's tuition, housing, and living expenses for the next 4 years. It is already paid in full." My mother's face twisted in pure rage, the blood rushing to her cheeks as she slammed her hands flat onto the table. "Take that garbage out of my house right now," she screamed, her voice shaking with manic anger. "You will not come into this home with your arrogant attitude and your corrupt money to ruin our family values. Maya is staying right here, where she belongs." I let out a cold, sharp laugh that echoed off the walls. I leaned forward, gripping the edge of the table, and let the bitter truth explode into the room. "Family values?" I asked, my voice cutting through her shouting like a knife. "Let's be entirely honest for once, Eleanor. This ridiculous tradition was never about family honor or keeping women safe. It was always about absolute control and desperate financial survival." I gestured toward the men sitting silently at the table. "The truth is, the men in this family have consistently failed. Your husband, Lily's husband, and his brothers. None of them can maintain a stable business or keep this household afloat. You trap the eldest daughters at home because you desperately need their free labor to cook, clean, and raise the babies while the rest of you drown in debt. You destroyed my future, and now you're trying to destroy Maya's just to keep your free maid." The room went completely breathless. Maya looked from me to the trust fund, tears spilling over her cheeks. Without a single word, she stood up, grabbed her coat, and walked up the stairs to pack her bags. 7 years after leaving, I stood in the bright morning sun, watching Maya eagerly carry her boxes into her freshman dorm room. The toxic cycle of forced submission was officially broken forever. Follow my story until the end and see how far my story has reached. What would you do if you're below? And meanwhile, I'm leaving on the final